Welcome to the Career Wanderlust podcast, your compass for new career horizons. Today, we are speaking with Sandra Fathi. Sandra is a highly strategic, innovative, and analytical C-suite executive with 20 plus years of successful company leadership. She has led extraordinary public relations campaigns for 300 plus clients across B2B and B2C sectors. Sandra opened her own public relations and marketing agency, Effect, back in 2002, successfully building a thriving and award-winning agency until she was acquired by Gregory FCA in 2021. Now, recently, Sandra branched off as the CEO and founder of a new company, Gray Matter Advisory, where she helps public relations, marketing, and digital agencies scale their business to meet their specific goals. I'm very excited to learn more. Sandra, thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast.
Thank you, Jolie. It's my pleasure to be here.
Please, could you share with us what you feel has been some of your favorite career advice and why?
Sure. I've been in this game a long time, so there are quite a few things that I would say were extremely valuable for me. But one of the things that I'll start with is when I decided to go out on my own, in many ways, it was a watershed moment for me after a very difficult time. In fact, I started my agency Effect about 6 months after 9/11 happened.
Oh,
And
wow.
I remember my current employer at the time, kind of when I told him my plans, reaching across the desk and holding my hand and being like, "Are you sure? Is this how you want to do it?"
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there were so many different reasons why I wanted to do it. And even though the economy was tanking and it was very unstable time and tech was crashing and there were all sorts of reasons working against me. Um, and I had a baby that was just 1 year old. There were a lot of challenges.
So many challenges.
But one of the things that I really felt was, I had been working for so many years so hard for other people, for other companies.
Mhm.
And I had been, burning the midnight oil, as they say, working the weekends, giving it my all and more than what I had. And making that leap to going out on my own and starting my own entity, I really had to say to myself, no one is going to work harder for me than me. And I have confidence in myself and my abilities to be able to make it happen and make sure that I am, able to prosper, build my company, build my career, even if it is not under the guidance of some other entity or individual. And I don't think you necessarily have to leave your current job to be able to do that. But I do think often people fall into the trap of thinking, I'm working so hard for someone else,
Mhm.
and they become disgruntled or frustrated in their current role. But you can decide, I'm going to take this opportunity to work so hard for myself and extract all of the experience, all of the knowledge, all of the experience and education and the skills that I need for my next role. And I think that that's also a great way to look at it.
Oh, so I completely agree. And it's a perspective that not a lot of people take. And so I really appreciate you sharing this because, yes, even if you happen to be unhappy in a role and you know that you want to leave, you know you're going to be looking for it, you can take that opportunity to learn you're getting paid to learn, right? You're getting paid to learn. So,
Absolutely.
yes, so you can learn every little possible thing that you can while you're there for yourself so that you are the best moving forward. And not only that, but when you do move forward, because you were the best there, your references are going to be a lot better. You're probably going to leave with a lot better connections and it's just going to help all around. So really, really great advice. I also just want to applaud you for building your company during that time. That was incredibly difficult time and you did it successfully. So just applause for your ability to do that.
I will say I was very fortunate. And in fact, my former employer became my first client.
Oh,
I think that, again, kind of a testimonial to what you said, making sure that you're nurturing the relationships where you are and not just where you want to be next, both because you never know how they can influence your career in the future. Again, I've been around the block many, many times, and I can't tell you how many folks in the industry I know and have run into time and time again in both good ways and maybe not so good ways, but companies where somebody was my client and a few years down the line, they moved to another company and I had an opportunity because we had a great relationship to work with them again. Or someone who perhaps I did not enjoy working with, and they were going to be a lead at another entity. And I had an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to make a choice here, and this is not for me. And I know that, but have a good relationship overall. And
Yeah.
I think that, you want to, if you can avoid it, never burn a bridge in the industry,
Mhm.
whether it's in PR or in corporate private. You never know where you're going to come back up against that individual or that company or who's going to be called for a reference. And I like to think you're going to have your reputation intact no matter whoever is speaking about you or working with you. It's your standard for yourself, the quality of your work, your professionalism, your expertise, rather than it being about the other individual or other person who you may be working with. So I do think that's very important as well.
Oh, so true. Sandra, I'm just curious because you did make it through the hardest times. I mean, not only did you build your company, this was a brutal time for PR. I remember for tech. I mean, it was just really brutal. So not only did you build your company through that, you've made it through multiple other downturns where we've really hurt in the PR industry. I'm just curious if there's anything that you found that helped you get through those times that might help other people.
I mean, in many ways, history does repeat itself.
Mhm.
I started the company in 2002, as we said, 6 months after 9/11. 2008, bottom dropped out of the tech market. More recently, COVID really shook up the industry, and now a lot of agencies are struggling. But throughout my career, I think those periods of crisis, whether they were for my own entity or for the clients that I'm working with, have been the most challenging, the most difficult, the most exhausting, but were also the most rewarding. Those are the periods that really test your mettle as a PR person or as a business person or as a leader. Those are the periods where you really have to step up. You have to make decisions quickly. You have to
Mhm.
stand behind them. You have to put all of your, skills in your toolbox to work, to come out of it on the other side. And I think that's really when you see the true colors of a great PR person or a great business leader. It's not when times are easy. It's when times are tough that comes out. And I think, the only way, again, is to go through it and to just roll up your sleeves, get in that fight, whatever it is, and continue to do the hard work that it needs to come out on the other side. I think what I'll also say is having good people around you is absolutely essential.
Right.
And whether it's a team that you're building or the team that you're working with, if you're in an organization and you feel like you're constantly giving 110%, but the people around you are just phoning it in or clocking it in,
Mhm.
it's very hard to sustain that
It really
motivation.
is.
So you really have to make sure, not when you're in the crisis, but before you get there, that you're surrounded by the right type of people to help you through that period.
Really good advice before the crisis. Yes. Really good advice. Thank you. Now, I love to hear stories, so I ask for a story. Could you share a story about an impactful lesson that or an event that you had in your work experience? What happened? What did you learn from it?
There's so many. I'll go back in the way, way back vault, and many of your listeners probably are not even familiar with this. But prior to starting my own agency, I actually worked for a period of time for Edelman, phenomenal agency, very large entity, and EDS was a very large client of ours. And it was 1999. And
Mhm.
we were all waiting for Y2K was the big expected worry. And EDS, a very large international computer networking firm, had set up literally a war room
Mhm.
where we were going to be eating, sleeping, living, working for a period of about a week. And on December 31st, 1999, we were going to watch the clock change in every time zone around the
Oh my
world
goodness.
and be prepared from a communication standpoint to grapple with the crisis as the expected computer systems were going to crash and cause havoc all over the
Mhm.
globe. And of course, none of that actually happened.
Thank
The
goodness.
clock just turned,
Yeah.
all the computers reset, and far be it from a few minor problems, but what we talked about for months, years, waiting for this anticipated crisis actually never came to fruition. However, that same night, what did come to fruition is there had been some EDS employees in the Middle East that had been kidnapped a few years before. And for whatever reason, they were released on that same night
Oh,
on New Year's Eve.
wow.
So the
Wow.
crisis that we had prepared for had nothing to do with the crisis that we encountered and the communications needs that we had for that evening. And obviously, all of the skills and all of the drills and all of the practice were essential so that we could walk through that type of crisis and again, put ourselves to the test, but it wasn't what we anticipated
Mhm.
or expected. And I think that helped me understand that whenever I'm working with a client or whenever I'm working with in any environment, you can try and prepare, you can try and anticipate, you can build a matrix of all the possible crisis scenarios. You're always going to miss the one that's coming. But everything that you do will help prepare you for that moment. And I think having the ability to be, nimble and flexible and think on your feet. And again, that kind of ability to make decisions quickly and utilize partial knowledge or partial truths in order to move forward, absolutely necessary in those times of crisis.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. It's such great advice for your personal life too, just in life in general. Because we don't, we worry about these things and we have these concerns and we worry, but it's the things that you don't really worry about that come knocking in all of a sudden, right? On the Wednesday morning out of nowhere. And um and you can't prepare for the things that you don't know are coming, but you can you can't have the processes, you can't have the lessons, you can't have the things that will help you with a variety of things. So, I mean, with PR, you have all of the different processes that that you need to put in place when a crisis comes along. And so when something new, at least I need to do X, Y, Z, and I need to do one, two, three. And it's kind of like that with life too, right? Like, it's just
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, not to get too deep into politics, but we are living in a very tumultuous time right
Mhm.
now
Mhm.
while war is raging between Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
And I think you are seeing a lot of universities, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations that have been pulled into a crisis, a public relations crisis in ways that they never expected.
Exactly.
And this is the moment where messaging and communications are absolutely essential. And I can fairly guarantee that almost no organization that is currently in the line of fire, not literally, but figuratively, anticipated that they would be drawn into this type of public relations crisis.
No. Yeah, I completely agree. It's yeah, fairly horrendous for anyone to consider could possibly be happening. But really good advice all around. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about, gray matter advisory. What you're going to be doing there? What are you looking for? Who do you work with?
Absolutely. So, gray matter advisory kind of came about in a pretty organic way. I sold my company back in 2021, and we had a very successful integration. By all means, we had a terrific partnership with Gregory FCA from a financial perspective, client integration, communications with the team. We continued to grow and prosper. We grew by nearly 30% as a joint entity. We added about
Great.
35 or 40 employees within the first
Great.
18 months. And we were ticking all of the boxes from a successful acquisition
Hmm.
standpoint. Not to say it wasn't without its challenges. It
Hmm.
always is behind the scenes. And slowly but surely, I started getting calls from CEOs of other agencies, asking for advice. I'm about to sell my company, or I'm going to buy a company, or I'm operating my company, but we're not as profitable as we should be. What advice can you give me? And I had so many of these calls that I realized a lot of the advisors that we're relying on, like the lawyers or the accountants or kind of these third parties, do not know what it's like to really operate an agency from the inside. And there was kind of a deep need to have someone with that experience and knowledge who can guide you and who can give you advice on what works, what didn't work, what are some of the speed bumps, what are the things to look out for, what are the hidden challenges, or how to deal with those things when they do come up with your team. And that's kind of what the thought process was behind Gray Matter Advisory. And so we're focused on four different areas. The first being that like overall strategy for a company, for the business, from an operational perspective. The other piece is marketing and branding for the agency. A lot of agencies don't really do a great job of PR for themselves. And
True.
um, but we do it so well for our clients, and then we seem to forget about doing it for the agency. And as you know, that can be a challenge both from a business growth perspective and from a hiring perspective
Hmm.
if you don't have any reputation or you don't have a good reputation.
Hmm.
The next area is culture and talent development. I was listening to some of your other podcast guests, and obviously culture always comes up. And I think in particular now, when we are in at best a hybrid, if not a fully remote environment, a lot of companies don't know how to build a culture in that structure.
True. Yeah.
And there is a lot that can be done, and it doesn't have to be in physical close proximity for you to build those bonds and that sense of loyalty and camaraderie among your team. And of course, the learning. We used to be able to just listen through osmosis to the person next to us
Oh,
or
yeah.
call someone in to an
Hmm.
impromptu meeting. We can't do that anymore. So it has to be purposeful and directed and planned. And that's very important. And then the last area is new business development. And I think that's a skill that really should be taught, whether it's within an agency or a corporate environment. And
Hmm.
it's something that I often think is left out of the organizations and
Hmm.
critical to the growth and development for the individual as well as for the companies they work for.
Right.
So building a curriculum and essentially teaching people to be great at selling their services or selling themselves and bringing in new
So
business for the
smart.
organization.
Amazing. I mean, really, really smart business model. Really smart business model. I'm excited for you. That's fantastic. Well, before you go, Sandra, I would love if you could tell us, if there's something that you've read or watched or listened to that had a positive impact on your life that you think others could benefit from, what would you share?
Oh, I don't think it's one thing. I think that one of the most important things is to constantly be learning, kind of
Mhm.
be a perpetual student
Mhm.
of your work and of
Yeah.
life. And when I look back over my career, obviously the industry has changed so much over the years, whether it's new technologies or new methodologies or new platforms. When I started, we were still making copies of paper magazines on the copier and sending them, to clients in clipbooks. There was no social media. There certainly was no X or Facebook or whatever other platform you want to call it. So I think you constantly have to be developing new skills and learning and never rest on your laurels, so to speak. And it's not just within, the tools, if you will, of the trade, but also in the industry. I have worked with clients from various technology backgrounds. It could be cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, ad tech, health tech, sustainability. I've worked in software, in hardware, in telecom. We've worked in fintech, professional services. And each of those genres has a whole universe of things that I can learn about. And whether it's, a deep dive in the technology, the trade shows and events, who are the influencers, who are the analysts, where is this industry going? What are the financial aspects of it? There's just no end. And I think making sure that you are never feeling complacent and
Mhm.
always thinking about what's the next thing I can know or learn about this industry. And that's always going to bring value to you and bring value to the organization that you're working with.
Amazing advice. I mean, how difficult is it to just learn one tiny little thing each day, right? And if you just learn one tiny thing each day, it just blows up to significant growth over the course of a year. And if you do that with your work, then yeah, you're just going to be a master. So I love this advice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra, thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast. It's been so much fun, and I really appreciate your insights.
It was a lot of fun for me, and I hope your listeners find it useful.
Thank you for joining us on the Career Wanderlust podcast. If you find value in learning from others, give us a like and subscribe. If you're looking to grow your communications, marketing, public relations, or sales and biz dev team with the best talent and quickly, check us out at paradigmstaffing.com and submit a request. We are wishing you a most successful and fulfilling career. Until next time.